everybody is.
Muy buenas noches a todos.
Good evening to everyone. I'm Lourdes Merisalio, I'm the national correspondent from Univision here in Washington. It is a real honor to be the MC at this ceremony, recognizing the commitment, leadership, and achievements by the collaboration amongst entities, people, and countries that have struggled to eliminate from our American continent Onchocerciasis, or river blindness. And because I'm so happy about this news, I'd like to share with you all that thanks to this work, 6 countries are impacted, but 4 of these 6 countries suffering from river blindness have managed to eliminate transmission. Yet another piece of good news today, the Minister for Health of Mexico, Mercedes Juan, announced that Mexico has been verified by the World Health Organization as having eradicated transmission of Onchocerciasis. Congratulations to Mexico, if the minister is here or another representative from Mexico. I was chatting a few moments ago with our panelists and with some of our distinguished participants. Right now I'm reading a book called All the Light We Cannot See by Anthony Doerr. It's an extraordinary book. And one of the leading characters is Marie-Laure, a French girl, Marie-Laure, who lost her sight when she was small, and we follow her life during her adolescence and the Second World War. It is a description that I had never before seen. So moving, so precise, so scary at times and terrifying, the thought of losing one's sight. And it made me think that it is truly it's a privilege to be among you who have devoted your lives to bring to so many people all the lights of our world. And I congratulate you for your work. This event will take place in both English and Spanish, and I remind you that you have simultaneous interpretation. It is now my pleasure to introduce our host, Dr. Carissa Etienne, Director General of the Pan American Health Organization. Throughout her career at the World Organization for World Health and PAHO, Dr. Etienne has promoted efforts to improve and strengthen the health services to reduce inequities in health care, and has proposed policies and actions for the adoption of universal coverage of health services. Dr. Etienne, we would like you to please take the floor.
Gracias. Let me welcome on behalf of the PAHO family all of you who are here with us this afternoon. Welcome to the House of Health of the Americas. In this special event, we are here to recognize the leadership and the commitment of key stakeholders in onchocerciasis elimination in the Americas, celebrating the successes of our countries in the region in eliminating this historic scourge, onchocerciasis, a tropical disease also known as river blindness. The presence of human onchocerciasis in the Americas is one of the tragic legacies of the transatlantic human slave trade, which started some 500 years ago. The parasitic worm causing human onchocerciasis was present in infected slaves from Africa, arriving to a new geographic region, the Americas, where it encountered a few efficient vectors. In 2008 and 2009, the Directing Council then took resolutions to issue a specific urgent call to interrupt the transmission of the disease in the Americas. The countries sought to reach their target by the year 2015. We are very close, but we are not quite there. It will take a little more time in at least 2 countries. The successes that our countries, Colombia, Ecuador, Mexico, and hopefully Guatemala, have had in eliminating onchocerciasis transmission and stopping its resulting blindness is part of what we celebrate this evening. In 2013, Colombia became the first country in the world to be verified by WHO as free of onchocerciasis transmission. Ecuador followed after Colombia in 2014, and more recently, in July 2015, Mexico received WHO's verification of elimination. The verification mission to Guatemala should be held early next year. The Bolivian Republic of Venezuela and Brazil are working together and with PAHO, the Carter Center and other partners to eliminate the transmission of the disease from their last focus as soon as possible. Elimination of onchocerciasis in these countries was accomplished principally through the delivery of ivermectin, an incredible safe medicine that kills the parasitic worms in humans. Ivermectin has been donated for 28 years, since 1987, by Merck in the form of Mectizan to every country in the world where onchocerciasis is still transmitted. Today, the more than 130 million people at risk globally benefit from Merck's Mectizan donation program, which has provided a total of over 1.3 billion treatments in more than 30 countries. The accumulated donation globally is one of the most significant events in the history of public-private partnership in medicine and public health, if not in international development. We register our sincere thanks for this really heroic performance by Merck. Transmission of onchocerciasis today in the Americas is known to occur only in the Yanomami area of northern South America, where about 25,000 people are still at risk. The elimination effort in the Yanomami area will require not only our constant and full support, their ministers and partners, it will require renewed commitment. I also call on you to tackle the adverse social and environmental conditions that accompany the lives of those made ill by this disease and similar diseases of poverty. But with the event of the social development agenda, it is all of our responsibility. Governments, civil society, private sector, and I dare say international organizations as ourselves. And so this is a very good example of how the sectors coming together can achieve significant success. I think that the work that our member states have done and the experiences that they have had are good examples and best practices for the rest of the world. And we are here this evening not only to celebrate, but to declare and to send a clarion call that we are prepared to make the final push to be free of onchocerciasis in this region. This region is always the first to eradicate. So we are on our way to eradication of onchocerciasis. Until the task is complete, when that task is complete, we will be free of onchocerciasis. So thank you all of you who've contributed. My congratulations to the member states for their tremendous efforts in that regard. But this is part of your history in this region, part of our history, the history of member states to eradicate diseases. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Etienne. Now I would like to invite Dr. Mauricio Sauerbrey, Director of the Onchocerciasis Elimination Program for the Americas, the OEPA, for him to come forward and speak. He headed up the OEPA and has since 1998, and he has a vast background in parasitic disease control, such as malaria. He has headed up research at the U.S. CDC, and he has been an advisor to the U.S. aid in Central America. He is also a professor at the University of South Carolina. Dr. Sauerbrey.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much. I'm very moved to be here. It's the honor lavished on me really is undeserved, because the true work is done by the country programs, and we simply accompany you and assist you in this mission. But I do know that this is an example worthy of mention. We still have to celebrate, as Dr. Etienne said, our host director. We'll truly celebrate when we truly achieve this goal throughout the region. This evening, however, I would like to report to you the progress made thus far in this initiative. First, I would like to underscore that the OEPA logo type now has 3 stars. Now that Mexico has announced its verification, an additional star has been added, and now 3 countries have been verified. You will also see there's a stamp that says 1915-2015. Dr. Rodolfo Robles, the Guatemalan who discovered this disease in the Americas, and this year it's been a century since this disease was discovered, and Guatemala is on the verge of also being verified. How did this success story get its start? Every nation. In 1980, a company that has heart called Merck discovered a medicine that was effective to treat Onchocerciasis in veterinary medicine, and then immediately they came up with the formulation for human beings, and they went to Africa to test it, and that's where they ascertained that the medicine really is effective in people. In 1987, shortly thereafter, a very unprecedented occurrence happened in public health. Merck announced that it was donating to the world its medicine for as long as was necessary and as much as was necessary, and this was unprecedented, and that now, thanks to Merck, other companies have been following that example, providing free of charge medicine to treat other neglected diseases such as lymphatic filariasis, intestinal parasites, schistosomiasis, and others. So what happened with this announcement and this discovery? It spurred the international public health community to do something, to not just stand idly by, and that's indeed what happened. The Directing Council of PAHO started to study this case, and in 1991 it issued the first resolution 35, resolution 14, that ordered that morbidity of this disease would be eliminated by 2007. For why only morbidity? Because no one was certain that in the field, those distributing the medicine, that it was truly going to be effective. That's what gave rise to this group that I represent here, that I'm honored to represent 10 people. That is the program for the elimination of Onchocerciasis, which belongs to the Carter Center, that since 1996, President Carter took upon himself the responsibility of pushing this forward, and has continued until now, and he will continue to do so. So that's where the initiative got its start. We started to visit countries. Only 2 countries at that point had programs, Guatemala and Mexico. The other countries, well, programs had to be started there because there were no active programs, and that's why Guatemala and Mexico are the longest standing ones. Mexico started in 1930 and Guatemala's in 1935. In 1993, when operations began, what you see up on the screen, this was the outlook of the distribution. As I was saying, 6 countries. My pointer was working and it isn't working now. 6 countries where there are 13 foci distributed in red. That's where there was active transmission in all of those places. Now, 22 years later, this is the current situation of distribution of Onchocerciasis in the Americas. We have 3 countries that have already been verified, which are the first 3 countries in the world that have been verified by the World Health Organization: Mexico, Colombia, and Guatemala, and Ecuador. Colombia was the first, then Ecuador, then Mexico, and Guatemala, that has already submitted its formal request to the World Health Organization, is just waiting for the visit of the International Evaluation Team for verification. So, 555 million people were at risk throughout the Americas at the time. 441,955 now are out of risk, beyond risk, and 123,192 are still at risk. Now there's a focus in the northeastern part of Venezuela, which is the third largest in the region, that will be taking its evaluation, submitting its evaluation for the elimination. So what's going to happen next year? We're certain that the northeastern focus of Venezuela will pass the evaluations, and then there will only be one at-risk population of 27,000 people, more or less. So this is the history of the evolution of treatment in the Americas. You can see here that Resolution 35R14 in 1992, as I said earlier, was the one that started this initiative to eliminate, at that point in time, morbidity, and slowly countries started offering treatment. You will see that in the beginning the figures were very low. Why? Because no one was really certain if it was going to be possible to eliminate this disease. So they took some timid steps forward, going into the endemic regions. Starting in 2000, you'll see how the figures start to rise significantly, and from that point on, all of the countries started to report 2 rounds, because the strategy used in the Americas from the outset was 2 rounds of treatment, contrary to what is done in Africa, in which up until this year a single round was customary. Now theirs is a control program, ours is one of elimination. So where did the 2 rounds come from? From studies carried out in the field in Guatemala that showed that if all of the communities were given, at least 85% of the population were given treatments in 2 rounds, within a couple of years transmission would stop, because there would no longer be microfilariasis in people's bodies, and even though mosquitoes kept biting, they would no longer be able to transmit. And this is what we call now closing or breaking the cycle. So the adult parasites, for which the medicine initially was thought would not be effective, we wait for them to die by natural causes. Now we know that medicine, when given in multiple treatments, is capable of damaging the reproduction, the reproductive system of the female parasites, shortening that cycle. And so this is what happened in 2003, was when we managed to reach the regional goal, which is the true success for us to reach that goal. And that, what we have to do now is to maintain it, and we have maintained it. And up until 2007, at the beginning of 2008, that's when some of the foci started to be eliminated. Now in 2003, you'll see green for the first time. This is in reference to an additional strategy of 4 rounds of treatment. For what purpose? To accelerate this process. This was Mexico that pioneered that technique or strategy of using 4 rounds in 50 communities in the southern region of Chiapas and Huistla, where it was really difficult given how intense transmission was. That's what Mexico did, and it continued to do so over the years. And in 2009, 179 or 69 communities rather received this 4-round treatment, and that's why Mexico was so successful. And now other countries, especially the 2 foci that still exist in this initiative, Venezuela and Brazil, also started to employ this 4-round approach. And in 2013, 2014, most treatments administered in the southern region of Venezuela and in Brazil are using the 4-round approach with the purpose of stepping up, accelerating the process, and finishing this process as soon as possible. Now this calls for a commitment. You have to make 4 different visits to all of the communities. These are far-flung and hospitable places, hard to get to, and that is the true effort undertaken here and what makes this initiative so special. Now, what's happening right now? In 95% of all of the at-risk populations in the Americas, that percentage has been reduced. There's only 5% of the population that's at risk, which is the home stretch, the final challenge that I showed in the earlier slide. Mexico announced verification. It has won an 80-year battle. This is the oldest program. It has been a hard-fought battle that Mexico waged with commitment, with professionals dedicated in these areas where there was a high transmission rate, and it finally achieved that goal, that success. And so congratulations, Mexico. The Undersecretary, Paulo Coy, is here. Congratulations.
Y le agradezco.
And I thank you for the honor of allowing us to work side by side with you in this project. Now, the last challenge. The border region between Venezuela and Brazil, where there's a focus. There are some people say there are 23,000 people who live there. It would really be easy, they say, to treat them, but under these conditions, it's really very hard. This is the area where we see this disease remaining. You need helicopters to get to the different places. There are no roads in some places, not even rivers. Some places do have rivers, and so you have to get there. This is a very small population, but that migrates from one region to the next, as we were told. Well, Mr. Mauricio Tomé told us, he's the advisor to the Yanomami Health District in Brazil, and he told us in a meeting, he's also the vice chair of Otocara, which is an indigenous association. He said, there are no borders for Indians. native peoples. They migrate from one place to the next, and mosquitoes don't observe borders. They bite people anywhere, but for health officials, there are borders, and they can't just cross them. That calls for a concerted effort carried out by both countries to see how to actually carry this out. There are heroes in this initiative, as you can see. Look here at this Mexican ophthalmologist, Dr. Hector Margelli, who is in the middle of the jungle in shorts, and looking at seated in front of a camera, examining the eyes of a Yanomami, and you have the others crouched over. They have to stay in this position for the microfilaria to be more visible, for them to go to the place in the eyes where they can be more readily detectable in this ophthalmological camera. Much is done via the river. This is a boat in Venezuela that comes out of the Orinoco River, and they load it up with all sorts of equipment, and it runs the full length of the river, and as it goes up the river, the smaller boats pull alongside, and they offload the supplies, and then they go up the other tributaries, and they do this 4 times a year. So just consider the commitment that this calls for, that this group of people working under these circumstances display. You really have to have a lot of heart and love for this. That's what public health is. So what do we have in mind for this last home stretch? This agreement, the new agreement between Brazil and Venezuela, showing a clear commitment by both countries to tackle this problem and make sure that this can be brought to fruition. This was May 2014 during the World Health Assembly that this new agreement was signed. And then follow-up teams were put together in both countries that were going to stay abreast of this progress made. And then the first binational meeting for follow-up held in Caracas, Venezuela, in February 2015 was held. The WEPA people weren't there. We will be at the next meeting, hopefully, to be held shortly. And there are still some communities in Venezuela that have yet to be discovered, especially along the border region of Venezuela. This is in a hospital place because it's a mountainous region. It's hard to get to. You have to have special equipment, helicopters that can fly that far. Now, there's an advantage in some of these places because they're very close to the border with Brazil, and Brazil has close by all of its communities. So I'm certain that when the two governments decide what their operational approach is going to be to tackle this problem between the two countries, and they will also find the way to do this jointly, the easiest way possible to actually do it. And the strategy is going to be a 4-year program through border regions. We're going to do this in 4 years, rather. We don't have more time than that. Now, as the director of PAHO said, the Directing Council next year is going to have to analyze this issue, and if it deems advisable to issue a new resolution as the prior one is coming to a close, that will make it possible for us to follow through on this initiative so that we can succeed in eliminating this disease in all of the Americas, and then we will have a true celebration of this huge success of all of the countries together. Now, President Carter, our boss in Atlanta, is truly committed to this. He has shown this from the beginning. He continues to show this commitment despite his sickness. He has been diagnosed with cancer, as we all know, and when he gave a conference for which one really needs to have true character to do that, at a time when most people cry or hide away after receiving such a diagnosis, he came out and made a joyful pledge of his further commitment, and he said, we're going to make that final push to succeed. And when he said that, he made that gesture with his hand. The last inch of the Americas is what we're going to have to conclude. He said this: we still have a program operating in 6 countries in Latin America, on the verge of ending, on the verge of doing away with Onchocerciasis or River Blindness, and there still is the region of the Yanomami people that has 25,000 people on the border between Venezuela and Brazil. And we are going to continue working on this, and so we will continue working in Latin America side by side with the country programs. Next. In summary, from 1995, there have not been cases of river blindness attributable to Onchocerciasis in the Americas. That's a huge contribution. Onchocerciasis is the second cause of blindness, an infectious cause after trachoma. 5% of the population, as I showed you, still needs to receive treatment of Mectizan. That's a respite for the Americas. Now, Colombia, Ecuador, and Mexico have been verified as free of Onchocerciasis by the World Health Organization, the first in the world in 2013, 2014, 2015. Guatemala is awaiting the visit of the International Verification Team of WHO at the beginning of 2016, most likely. That means there will be 4 stars in our logo. And in 2016, the proper thing would be for there to be a report at the Directing Council of PAHO, for the Directing Council to decide whether it will issue a new resolution to follow through with this success story and to crown this initiative with total success. Next, I think this is something of interest to all, to know how much this initiative in public health has cost. The total cost is 150 million. Now, this is a public-private association, partnership, in which everyone kicks in. Countries, donors, Merck, everyone. Look at that, $153 million, 39% of which is kicked in by countries. This is something that has not happened in the past in Africa. In Africa, they expected donations from abroad, and countries didn't want to kick in their own money, and the Americas have set the example. Then 36% has been provided by Merck with its donation of the Mectizan tablets. 25% has been provided by other allies and participants, partners, through the donations they have made to President Carter and the Carter Center to take the complementary assistance to this initiative. This has been very important in one aspect, and that is the Onchocerciasis control program in Africa, the first one that was done, which was one of control because we didn't yet have ivermectin, and an herbicide was used. It cost $556 million for the duration of its existence. So now those are big programs, yes, I understand, but this, as you can see how hard it is to get to all of these sites. Finally, I'd like to thank the 6 countries, the health ministries, their programs and communities for accepting these programs and for taking the medicine, as well as the participating organizations, Merck, especially that has made it possible to make huge strides toward the elimination of onchocerciasis by providing us with this wonderful tablet for it to be effective. And I've said this at all the meetings I've gone to. If it doesn't reach someone's stomach, it doesn't do any good. If it's on someone's nightstand or in the medicine cabinet, it has to be in your stomach. And that's what countries have done in their programs, through their programs, and they've done so with excellence. Thank you very much.
Muchas
Thank you very much, Dr. Sauerbray. Listening to you carefully talk about this close cooperation between the private sector, governments, civil groups and institutions such as the Carter Center, it's really a great pleasure to see something working so well. And I'm just thinking to myself, just like Washington, very praiseworthy work what you really have done. We'll now show a brief video, following which Dr. Julie Gerberding, Executive Vice President of Global Public Policy, Strategic Communications and Population Health of Merck & Company, known as MSD outside of the United States and Canada, will address some remarks. Before taking over her position in 2015, Dr. Gerberding was president of the Vaccine Division of Merck & Company, Inc. from 2010 to 2014. Before working at Merck, she was director for the US CDC from 2002 to 2009. She's also an assistant professor at the University of California in San Francisco. Let us now watch the video.
En 1915, el médico guatemalteco Rodolfo Robles descubrió cómo los gusanos filarias encontrados en la mosca negra causan ceguera. La onchocercosis, una enfermedad conocida comúnmente como ceguera de los ríos, es una de las principales causas de ceguera prevenible en el mundo. La Organización Mundial de la Salud, OMS, calcula que en el mundo hay más de 100 millones de personas en riesgo, 37 millones de personas infectadas, 500,000 con discapacidad visual, 270,000 ciegas y millones de personas que sufren una comezón insoportable, también causada por la picadura de la mosca negra. En 1987, el director general de MSD, el doctor Roy Vallelos, hizo una promesa audaz.
At that meeting, we announced that Merck would contribute the drug free to anyone in the world who needed it for as long as it was needed.
El programa de donación de Mectizan fue creado por MSD en el mismo año para supervisar la donación y el suministro del medicamento antiparasitario ivermectina, conocida como Mectizan, a los ministerios de salud, brigadas comunitarias del sector salud y a los residentes de las comunidades afectadas para establecer y mantener las actividades de tratamiento y educación para la salud. Es el programa de donación de medicamentos más antiguo y también la primera colaboración de su tipo para atacar una enfermedad. La onchocercosis existe en 31 países en África, Yemen y en 6 países en el continente americano: Brasil, Colombia, Ecuador, Guatemala, México y la República Bolivariana de Venezuela. En 1991, el Consejo Directivo de la Organización Panamericana de la Salud hizo un llamado a eliminar la onchocercosis del continente americano. El Programa de Eliminación de la Onchocercosis en las Américas, OEPA, fue creado en 1993 para atender este llamado. OEPA es parte del Programa de la Eliminación de la Ceguera de los Ríos del Centro Carter, que provee de asistencia técnica y financiera a los programas nacionales. Las coaliciones de socios públicos y privados en África y América dieron origen a la estrategia de distribución de Mectizan con la participación de las comunidades. 1.000 millones de tratamientos de Mectizan han sido distribuidos en más de 100.000 comunidades, sobre todo en África. 13 millones de tratamientos en América Latina desde 1989. En 2013, Colombia se convirtió en el primer país del mundo en recibir la verificación de la Organización Mundial de la Salud por haber eliminado la ceguera de los ríos. En 2014, Ecuador fue el segundo país en eliminar la oncocercosis y recibir la verificación por parte de la Organización Mundial de la Salud.
Si no hubiera habido un programa de donación del Mectizan, yo creo que no se hubiera podido realizar este trabajo aquí en el Ecuador. Y tampoco si no hubiera existido un equipo comprometido que distribuya la ivermectina, tampoco no hubiéramos estado todavía hablando.
En 2015, México se convirtió en el tercer país en recibir verificación por parte de la Organización Mundial para la Salud y se espera que Guatemala alcance esta meta en 2016.
Nosotros nos vamos satisfactoriamente con haber cumplido nuestra meta, hacer todo el esfuerzo. Dejamos nuestros años de vida aquí, pero pues con satisfacción a las comunidades que quedan sanas.
Hoy, en América Latina, más de 400.000 personas están libres del riesgo de tener la ceguera de los ríos. Como resultado de estas campañas, el tratamiento con Mectizan ya no es necesario en la mayoría de las comunidades y la necesidad de recibir el medicamento ha disminuido en un 95%. Sin embargo, un poco más de 20.000 personas continúan en riesgo en áreas remotas de Brasil y Venezuela. Proveer Mectizan a personas en estas áreas remotas es el último gran desafío para alcanzar el sueño de una América Latina libre de esta terrible enfermedad. La visión establecida hace casi 3 décadas está a punto de alcanzarse gracias a la extraordinaria dedicación de organizaciones gubernamentales y no gubernamentales, de la OPS, OMS, del sector privado, donantes y líderes de la comunidad que han dedicado gran parte de sus vidas para que sus comunidades prosperen.
Las brigadas ya cubrieron toda su área que correspondía, la área endémica, y la aceptación de Mectizan, que fue excelente. Desde ese momento ya no vimos un ciego más.
Una visión, un compromiso, una meta a alcanzar. Ya casi estamos ahí.
Distinguished colleagues, honored guests, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. It's really an honor to be here, to have a chance to pause to celebrate something that is such a remarkable achievement. Now, I think when Dr. Vagelos made the decision to commit to the Mectizan donation to all who needed it for as long as they needed it in 1987, elimination was not even what he was thinking. It was 500,000 people at risk in this region alone, and a very complex set of challenges, logistic, financial, and political, that needed to be overcome to even get this disease under control. So we've come a long way since 1987. To hear that we've gone from 500,000 people at risk to 20,000 people at risk is almost a medical miracle. And so it does seem fitting that we would take time out to pause. But of course, this achievement would not have been possible without incredible partnerships. The drug was necessary, but certainly not sufficient for success. And I think the incredible contributions of the country leadership, the Pan American Health Organization, and certainly the Carter Center and numerous other NGOs and members of civil society have really come together at a local level to get the job done right. The Mectizan donation program, which is based at the Task Force for Global Health, is the longest running disease-specific drug donation program in public-private partnership of its kind. 13 million treatments in this region. Think about that, just 13 million doses of this drug have been distributed in some pretty challenging environments. So it's a wonderful opportunity to celebrate the elimination in the 4 countries that have been successful, and the fact that we're on track in the remaining 2 countries to get the job done I'm very honored. For me as a public health official, you don't get to do this very often, so it's really a wonderful opportunity to appreciate some outstanding leaders. We are going to present the awards now, and I just want to say that the inscription on the awards reads as follows: in recognition of leadership and commitment to defeating onchocerciasis in support of the health of the people of the Western Hemisphere. So let me start by inviting Dr. Adriano Masuda, the National Secretary of Science, Technology, and Strategic Supplies of the Brazilian Health Ministry, who is representing Brazil, to come forward. Brazil is making great strides toward the elimination of river blindness with a target date of 2020. Your country is setting a positive example for international public health collaboration by working with Venezuela to eliminate river blindness in the shared Amazon region. So we're very honored to acknowledge your leadership and your contributions to our success. Thank you. I would also now like to invite Dr. Fernando Ruiz Gomez, who's the Deputy Minister of Public Health and Health Service Delivery of the Republic of Colombia, who is representing Colombia's Minister of Health, to come forward. Colombia has the special recognition of being the first country to verify elimination in 2013. Knowing that the partnership achieved its first elimination milestone was a truly remarkable day and a reason that gave confidence and hope to the rest of the countries that they too could be successful. So we congratulate you for the contribution that your nation has made in this effort. Congratulations. Now I would like to invite Karina Vance, who's the Minister of Health of Ecuador, to come forward. Ecuador became the second country to receive verification of elimination by WHO in 2014, following 24 years of treatment with Mectizan to some 16,000 people. So it is an honor to recognize your leadership and congratulations. Unfortunately, the Republic of Guatemala is not represented by the Health Ministry today, but we do want to acknowledge and share some thoughts about the role of Guatemala in this effort. Following decades of focused effort, the country is now awaiting verification of the elimination of onchocerciasis by WHO. Guatemala has a very special place in the fight against river blindness. 2015 marks the 100th anniversary of the discovery of critical information about this parasite, the life cycle and the transmission of it. These discoveries were made by a Guatemalan physician, Dr. Rodolfo Robles. This knowledge greatly aided our ability to control river blindness and facilitated, of course, the elimination efforts across the Americas and in Africa. So let me, in absentia, recognize the leadership and commitment of the people of Guatemala and their leaders to defeating onchocerciasis. And by the way, we promise we will deliver the award. I would like to invite Dr. Pablo Curry, the Deputy Secretary of Prevention and Health Promotion of Mexico, who is representing Mexico's Secretary of Health, to come forward. Mexico is the most recent country to receive verification by WHO of its elimination program. Originally, more than 170,000 people in 3 affected areas were at risk, and so I think today you made it official in the public domain that you had accomplished this mission, and it is an honor to recognize you. I now invite Dr. Claudia Morón de Porres, the Deputy Minister of Collective Health Networks of the Ministry of Popular Power for Health of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela, to join me at the podium. The Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela originally had 3 transmission zones and has already successfully stopped transmission in 2 of the 3. Along with Brazil, the Republic of Venezuela is now working tirelessly to address the challenge of cross-border disease control efforts with elimination projected for 2020, same as Brazil. So we honor your leadership and thank you for your participation. Now I invite Ambassador Marian Peters of the Carter Center to join me here. From the beginning of the program, the Carter Center has been the driving force to help partners collaborate. And I'll just say, when you come to Merck headquarters and you walk in the door, there's a statue that shows the little boy leading the grandfather with a stick because the grandfather is blind. And every time I think of that, I see the side by side the picture of President Carter when he visited one of the program sites. And it just makes me appreciate, as a former Atlantan, how much he's done to help this program and so many other programs. So congratulations on your new post. And thank you also for everything that the Carter Center has done to facilitate the success of all of us here. Thank you.
Thank you.
And now I invite Dr. Carissa Etienne from the Pan American Health Organization to come forward. PAHO leadership really has galvanized the efforts of member states, setting new regional disease elimination targets to be achieved through mass drug administration. Establishing these goals in formal PAHO resolutions to provide the transparency we need to make sure that we are on track, and also for decades providing the technical and financial support. So let's certainly acknowledge the contributions of PAHO.
I would like to share this movement with them.
Now, although he could not be here in person today, I also want to take a moment to acknowledge President Jimmy Carter's personal commitment to eliminating river blindness. I know we're all keeping him in our thoughts and prayers and remembering that this celebration would not have been possible without his tireless effort for this and for so many other global health challenges through the years. He once said, "Spirit is like the wind, in that we can't see it, but we can see its effects, which are profound." Thank you all for your spirit and for everything that you have contributed to helping the people of the Americas have the vision and the capacity to live full and healthy lives. Thank you.
Realmente.
Really, those are well-deserved awards. Thank you very much, Dr. Gerberding. I'd now like to invite Dr. Fernando Ruiz Gomez, Deputy Minister of Public Health and Health Services, Delivery Ministry of Health and Social Protection of Colombia. Dr. Ruiz Gomez has vast experience in managing and evaluating public health and social protection programs in Colombia and in Latin America. He's a surgeon with a master's in economics given by the Javeriana University and in public health and occupational health from the Public Health School at Harvard. Among other activities, he has been a consultant for the health sector at the World Bank and the Inter-American Development Bank. You are welcome, sir.
Muy buenas noches.
Good evening to all. I would like to share a sentence that describes the blindness of the most well-known Latin American blind man who said, "I'm alone and there's no one in the mirror." Jorge Luis Borges. The river blindness is a disease that ought not exist, that should never have existed, but existed for reasons of destiny. In Colombia, it existed in an area that concentrated poverty. The Corregimiento Naciona in the municipality of López de Micay, next to a river, a place that was populated by Afro-Colombian people, extremely poor, surrounded by the deepest violence. López de Micay, 2 weeks ago, we had what I would like to say are the last 5 people to die from the absurd Colombian war. This is an afternoon for giving thanks, and I in particular wish to thank on behalf of all those who have today received this recognition and this commendation. Congratulations to Ecuador, our neighboring country. Congratulations to Mexico. Congratulations very especially to Venezuela and to Brazil, Guatemala, and all of us who have made strides in this effort. Colombia is proud to have been the very first country in the world to eliminate onchocerciasis, and we were deeply appreciative of the presence of President Jimmy Carter when in 2013 the president gave us a certificate. It was a very emotional time, very important and significant for our country. President Carter and that humanity and the spirit of President Carter will always be high in the heart of Colombians and many Latin Americans. And I'd like to share the PAHO sentence that in its report on Colombia, and I quote, "It's an example of applying values, principles, and essential elements of primary care in the elimination of a disease that afflicts isolated poor populations," end of quote. But in addition, it's an act recognizing joint work by the World Health Organization, PAHO, Merck, the Carter Center, OEPA, United Nations, and so many other organizations that perhaps we have omitted some of them, but nonetheless we recognize their contribution to elimination of this disease that would affect 39% of the population in López Micay in 1995. I think this is the right moment to mention the work of health providers to reach López de Micay, put at risk all of those individuals who had to go there, risk of malaria, risk of going through a tremendous jungle, to a place where practitioners seldom go, where there's no electricity, no running water, and to reach it from the health center and through the public the ministry of the department was practically impossible. But these hidden heroes, who we never mention or we mention very seldom, had to go and travel for many days and over many years, and were very persistent in their actions in order to achieve this small but important milestone for the health of the continent. Ivermectin, we don't know if that's just coincidence, is used in animals, and then suddenly we discovered it can be used in humans also. That is when the forces of good and the forces of joint effort and work come together to achieve something so noble as overcoming a disease. Lastly, I would like to say that for Latin America, it's really a beacon of hope to be able to eliminate onchocerciasis, and provides us a push to eliminate other diseases, trichinosis, and so many diseases that should not exist. And as health practitioners, it is our work, it is our vision as countries to eliminate them and to ensure that we finally close that gap of inequity where the poorest have this harmful burden of greater disease than the rest of the population. Public health is strengthened and reinvigorated when through public health we're able to eliminate poverty, and that's the destiny for us all. Thank you very much, and the expression of gratitude from our country to all those who have and will continue contributing to achieve this noble target of public health in this continent. Thank you.
Muchas gracias, Vice.
Thank you very much, Deputy Minister Ruiz. It is now my pleasure to show a video greeting recorded by former U.S. President Jimmy Carter, with whom we recall with great affection tonight. In addition to having been the 39th President of the United States, he is co-founder and administrator of the Carter Center, author of 29 books, and he was awarded the Nobel Prize for Peace. Following that, we will hear from Ambassador Marian Peters, the CEO of the Carter Center since 2014. Ambassador Peters was a rector of the U.S. Naval War College of the United States, and also the European Center for International Security, George Marshall, in Germany. She has served over 30 years at the Department of State of the United States, and she has been this country's ambassador to Bangladesh. Ambassador Peters is a graduate from the University of Santa Clara and the School of Advanced International Studies at Johns Hopkins. First, we will watch the video.
Thank you, Lourdes. Oh.
Friends and partners, Rosa and I are disappointed we are not able to be with you today. I am honored for the recognition and humbly accept the Merck Award on behalf of the Carter Center's Onchocerciasis Elimination Program for the Americas, OEPA. The Carter Center remains steadfast in its support of river blindness elimination, and I am personally committed to doing away with this scourge in the Americas as soon as possible. Outstanding progress toward this effort has been made. Congratulations to the countries that have eliminated river blindness: Colombia, Ecuador, Mexico, and soon Guatemala. To Brazil and Venezuela, I applaud your recent binational agreement confirming your commitment to act in harmony to rid the Yanomami population of Onchocerciasis from your shared border. These national accomplishments are possible in part because of strong, committed partners. Merck's generosity, with its donation of billions of Mectizan tablets, has been a key to treating all at-risk populations twice or 4 times per year. The Pan American Health Organization has shown sustained commitment to this regional initiative through a series of key directing council resolutions, the last of which expires this year. And a host of steadfast donors have provided generous financial support to the regional effort through OEPA. Together, we've achieved so many significant milestones, but I'm not ready to celebrate until the task is complete. Now is not the time to become complacent. Rather, it is a time to increase our efforts. First, by the end of this year, all river blindness-afflicted Yanomami communities need to be identified so we can begin providing villagers with medicine and health education. Second, cross-border teams and flights are needed to work effectively on the Brazil-Venezuela border. I have personally visited the Yanomami in the remote jungles, and I'm convinced that only teams transported by helicopters can get the job done. Third, a new PAHO resolution is critical, not only to maintain the regional partnership, but to establish a new target date for elimination from Brazil and Venezuela. I hope we can use this occasion to renew our resolve to achieve elimination of Onchocerciasis in Latin America as soon as possible. The Carter Center, Rosa, and I deeply thank Merck for this award. We also thank each of our dedicated partners for improving the lives of so many for generations to come. Thank you.
I want to add my thanks to those of others, to Merck and to PAHO, for hosting this event to recognize the accomplishments of all of those who've worked to eliminate onchocerciasis in the Americas. Of course, I'm sorry to be here tonight because I wish President Carter were here, and he and Mrs. Carter also regret that. And you all know why, and one reason is that he is, of course, under treatment for cancer, a treatment also provided by Merck, as a matter of fact. As you just heard, the goal of OEPA, the goal of eliminating river blindness from this hemisphere, is very close to President Carter's heart. He knows a great deal about this campaign, and he cares deeply about it. And of course, he's watching for that last inch to be accomplished. And thanks to Dr. Gerberding and to Merck again for the recognition, to the national programs, and of course to the Carter Center for the accomplishments to date. And I want to add our congratulations to those others have expressed, to the 3 countries, Colombia, Ecuador, and Mexico, that have already been verified. And of course, we expect Guatemala and soon Venezuela and Brazil to join that number. And I think all of you know that in an elimination effort or an eradication effort for that matter, it's the last 5%, that last inch, that's the most difficult. So as President Carter said, we can't slack off. This is always the case, and we need to persevere. One of the biggest lessons we at the Carter Center have learned over the years, and possibly particularly through this program, is that success really is only possible if we work together. That's often used as something of a cliche, but we find that in this case, it couldn't be more true. And solidarity and encouragement from the countries that have already achieved verification is important. The Carter Center will continue to support the efforts of Venezuela and Brazil as they move toward that goal line, so that we can all together celebrate a hemisphere free of this disease, which, as others have said, no one should ever have to suffer from. Once again, I want to say that this is a wonderful example of public-private partnerships that I think are going to play an increasing role in our global health efforts. The ministries of health, of course, have played the primary roles in their countries. Merck is a leading corporate example of generosity and of heart, as someone said. And of course, we have organizations such as PAHO and the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention that have played important roles. And for our part, at the Carter Center, we want to recognize those other corporate sponsors and foundations, governments, and individual donors, many of whom you know, including Mr. John Moores and the River Blindness Foundation, the Lions Club's International Foundation, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, the U.S. Agency for International Development, the Carlos Slim Foundation, the OPEC Fund for International Development, and many, many others and individual donors. The last thing I'd like to say is that the really inspiring progress against this disease here in this hemisphere is serving as a beacon of hope for the many more people in Africa who suffer from onchocerciasis, possibly as many as 120 million are at risk. And of course, hundreds of thousands have been blinded by the condition. And in Africa, the Carter Center assists the ministries of health of Uganda, Sudan, and areas of Ethiopia and Nigeria. And we are shamelessly using lessons learned from the campaign in this hemisphere. So I think those here in the Western Hemisphere can be very proud of what your efforts have accomplished here and of the way they're leading the charge in Africa. Thank you.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Peelers. Now I have the pleasure of introducing the Director of Pan American Health Organization, of the World Health Organization, Margaret Chan, who has been holding that position since 2006, having been elected 2 times to head up that organization. Through her career, Dr. Chan has led services to address breakouts of diseases, and she has led initiatives to address communicable diseases through enhancing training of healthcare professionals and also to improve international collaboration. Dr. Chan.
Thank you. Good evening, and ladies and gentlemen, old friends, new friends. Let me first and foremost thank you for the invitation to join you today on this very special occasion, a special recognition event sponsored by Merck MSD to celebrate the advances and the successes of the great efforts to eliminate onchocerciasis, known as river blindness. When I was studying in Canada, we did not study those diseases, with long names, very difficult to say. But these are the big group of diseases. Myrta, you know it, you're the expert. This is a big group of these diseases that anchor far too many women and children and men into poverty. And I come here to thank you for your efforts, particularly the governments, but through the partnerships that have been alluded to by so many of you. It is a great pleasure for me as Director General of WHO to sign a letter in each of 2013, 2014, and 2015 and send it to the Minister of Health in Colombia, Ecuador, and now, of course, Mexico, to congratulate them on the elimination of onchocerciasis in their country. This is a big achievement because we know the landscape you're working in. We know the difficult environmental factors that are affecting you. Diseases, as some of you said, do not respect borders. Congratulate you for your success, but I also would like you to pay attention to make sure that your excellent work was not rolled back because of reintroduction. We know diseases do not respect borders. People move around. For the average community members, they don't know there is a land border. Only governments know about it, right? And officials do not necessarily, when they do contact tracing, cross borders. That's a lesson we must learn. Some diseases need a regional approach or sub-regional approach, collaboration between governments in order to get things done. We learned this in the Ebola outbreak. The 3 countries who were affected by Ebola actually share a common borders. It's the same ethnic group of people living in that region. They intermarry, they are friends, they visit each other. When we ask them, what borders? What is borders? So that's why it is a very important lesson for those of us in public health to learn. Border exists in government officials. Disease don't understand you. People don't understand borders. But as I said, other than congratulating you and follow what Ambassador said, we are shameless. We need to use your best model and to encourage Africa to adopt your model, but without paying intellectual property. Huh? Is that agree? Good. Well done. So, let me, once again thank OEPA in the Carter Center and the Carter Center itself PAHO, WHO, and the Medicine Donation Program of Merck and MSD. Good to see my old friend Julie here today. And of course, other entities, that has been mentioned by Ambassador, Marian just now. But let me just say that we would like to encourage, Brazil as well as Venezuela. I saw the two of you shaking hands just now. So that means a deal to work together. We are here to support you, to support your efforts to get the job done. And as soon as possible, in early 2016, we are going to send a team to Guatemala to do the WHO international verification. And I look forward to congratulating Guatemala and also, hopefully, not too soon, Venezuela and Brazil. Can you get it done before I retire? Don't overpromise. I only have 22 months. So certainly we can get Guatemala done and then congratulate them, but I do encourage you. I am totally confident, given the success that we have seen and the collaboration, you will get it. But let me finish on one point. As I came from New York, where your leaders, where your presidents, prime ministers, just sign on to the dotted line on approving and adopting the Sustainable Development Agenda for the next 15 years. I just would like to highlight the 5 key words from that many goals and 169 targets. SDG is all about people, the people we serve. It's all about the planet that sustains our life. It's about shared prosperity, and it's about peace, and it's so fitting that Carter Center is also attaching importance to peace and people. Last but not the least is partnership. So the 5P, let me repeat: people, planet, prosperity, peace, and partnership. Without them, we are not going to get sustainable development in the next 15 years. It's all the more that we need to work together, not just governments, but of course governments need to take the leadership. You contributed the most resources in the Onchocerciasis, elimination in your countries, but we need also to work with what we call non-state actors in WHO. Who are those non-state actors? They are the civil society, the communities, the industry, the academics, and not to forget, of course, international organizations like PAHO and WHO. So remember the people. And going forward, we must work together to deliver on our promises to the people of the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Chan. Before concluding, after having seen all these videos and images and hearing your very eloquent words and everything that's being done on the ground, it occurs to me that today we too should send a message to all of the healthcare workers that you represent in the ministries of health, in the organizations present here. Send to them our recognition for their work, which is oftentimes the hardest work, to reach the far-flung areas, to take to the people the gift of sight. And we acknowledge the very hard work that they do throughout Latin America. I would like to take a moment to thank Merck for having invited me here tonight. This has been much more than I thought it would be, a true privilege and a lesson to me. It was a true pleasure to be here with you. And so with these words, we conclude this event, and we ask those who, the awardees, to come forward for a picture. Thank you.